"The dark will hide you just like your shame," he whispered, twisting the iron key until the lock clicked. The echo of that sound clung to the basement walls like a taunt. My name is Ava Callahan, 26 years old, and I stood in the dim stairwell as the door sealed me into silence. The mansion groaned above, its beams settling like tired bones. Dust curled in the air, lit faintly by a single slit of light between the planks. My brother's smirk lingered in my mind, the way he avoided my eyes as if I were already buried. He thought this was about punishment. He thought shame was mine to carry. But shame once trapped does not sit still, it sharpens. I touched the stone wall beside me, rough and damp, and something shifted deeper inside. Not footsteps. Not rats. A presence. I wasn't alone, though he believed the lock made me powerless. A cracked mirror leaned against the far wall. My reflection broke into jagged shards, every angle showing a different piece of me, some terrified, some defiant. My father's voice once told me, "Glass cuts deeper than steel." He never explained why, but maybe this was the lesson. The mansion's secrets pressed closer, breathing with me. He thought he had silenced me. Instead, he had given me walls to listen. Have you ever had family cross your boundaries, lock you in the dark and expect you to stay small? Tell me in the comments. And as the silence deepened, one thought remained. Darkness doesn't hide shame, it reveals who put it there. The air tasted of mildew and iron, thick enough that each breath felt borrowed. My palms pressed against the door, but the wood held steady, swollen with age. Somewhere above, his shoes clicked against marble, measured, arrogant. I pictured him pouring himself a drink, satisfied with how neatly he'd folded me away. But the basement disagreed. The mansion did not like secrets. A faint drip echoed, steady as a metronome, pulling me deeper into the shadows. I followed the sound, tracing my fingers across brick until they brushed against something smooth, polished oak, an old trunk, its brass hinges dulled by time. My heartbeat stuttered. A lock dangled from its clasp, rusted but fragile. Beside it, on the floor, lay the object that would keep whispering to me through the hours. A brass key. Not the one he used upstairs. Smaller. Ornate. Cold as betrayal in my hand. The mansion hummed louder as my thumb traced its grooves, as though it had been waiting for me to find it. A key is never just a tool, it's an invitation. And invitations always come with conditions. My reflection in the cracked mirror caught the brass glint, fracturing it into a dozen sparks. Each shard seemed to ask a different question. Unlock what? Unlock who? Unlock why? I curled my fist around it, pressing metal into skin until it hurt. The mansion's breath rose from the floorboards like a secret finally waking. And upstairs, a glass clinked against crystal. He had no idea what I now held. The trunk resisted me at first, as though centuries of dust had tightened its grip. I slid the brass key into the lock. It turned smoother than I expected, like it had been waiting for a familiar hand. The click was louder than it should have been, sharp, decisive. Inside, a velvet lining had decayed to threads, yet fragments of a life remained. Letters yellowed with age, photographs in silver frames, a pair of gloves still carrying the faint scent of perfume long forgotten. But what caught me was the ledger. Its leather cover cracked, its pages thick with ink. Names. Dates. Numbers scrawled in hurried strokes. Debts, inheritances, transactions buried under silence. The mansion wasn't just a home, it was a vault of betrayal. My family had always whispered about money disappearing, about fortunes untraceable. Here it was, line after line, proof carved into paper. And at the top of one page, Callahan Trust, Ava removed, effective immediately. My throat tightened. He hadn't just locked me in the basement. He had erased me, stripped me from the very legacy my name was meant to inherit. I wanted to scream, to shred the ledger and scatter the ashes through the mansion. But silence had its own sharpness. I pressed the book shut, tucking it under my arm. A door creaked, not above me but within the basement itself. The sound was careful, almost polite, like someone stepping into a room they already owned. I wasn't alone. The mansion hadn't lied. The creak carried into the marrow of my bones, a sound too deliberate to be the house settling. I froze, clutching the ledger against my chest. The brass key in my hand seemed to vibrate faintly, as if aware its purpose wasn't finished. From the far corner where the shadows bled deepest, a voice rose, quiet, steady, neither male nor female. You still wear that perfume? The words knocked the air from me. I hadn't worn perfume in weeks. My throat went dry. Who's there? No answer. Only the hum of the mansion's pipes, a low murmur like breath. I edged closer, my shoes brushing against grit and broken glass. That cracked mirror tilted slightly on its own, reflecting not just me but a blur, like someone standing where no one should. Why are you here? I whispered. The blur in the mirror leaned closer, lips moving though no sound followed. The basement seemed to tilt, pulling me toward the reflection rather than the figure. And then I realized, the ledger wasn't only about money. Scribbled in the margins beneath the numbers were notes. Descriptions. Hidden rooms. Passages. I turned a page with trembling hands. Sub-basement, west wall, behind the stone arch. My pulse thundered. That was where the voice came from. The brass key dug into my skin, urging me to choose. Open what was hidden, or remain locked in the shame they had scripted for me. And above, faintly, laughter trickled down through the floorboards. He thought I was silenced. He was wrong. I pressed my hand against the west wall, where the stone arched lower, damp spreading in crescent stains. The air shifted there, cooler, almost metallic. The ledger hadn't lied. My fingers searched the seams until they found it, a gap just wide enough for the brass key. The moment the key turned, the wall sighed open. A hidden passage exhaled stale air, the scent of old wood and forgotten fire. My skin prickled. This was not a space meant for discovery. I stepped inside, the ledger tucked beneath my arm, the key still warm in my palm. The corridor sloped downward, narrower with each step, until it delivered me into a chamber lined with shelves. Not wine, not relics, files, contracts. Entire lifetimes catalogued and bound in string. And in the center, under a sheet of dust, sat another mirror. This one unbroken, its frame carved with ivy leaves. My reflection stared back, whole yet strange, as though it belonged to another life. The silence thickened until the voice returned, closer this time. You see now. You were never meant to be erased. I spun, but the chamber was empty. My breath clouded in the cold. On the shelf beside me, a single folder glowed faintly under the dim light. I pulled it free. Inside was my name, Ava Callahan, and beneath it a document declaring me rightful heir, not removed, not erased, but reinstated. The ink was fresh. And upstairs, a door slammed shut. Someone had realized the mansion was answering me. The slam echoed through the walls, rattling dust from the beams. My brother's voice followed, muffled but sharp, barking orders I couldn't make out. He knew I was alive down here. Worse, he knew I was moving. I clutched the folder to my chest, the fresh ink almost warm through the paper. The mansion had rewritten my name, breathed me back into the bloodline they thought I'd been cut from. But proof alone wasn't enough. Proof needed witnesses. The mirror in the chamber quivered, its surface rippling as though stirred by water. My reflection leaned closer, lips parting. This time the whisper reached me clear. Shame is not yours, it's his. Take it upstairs. The passage behind me groaned, stone shifting as if the house itself demanded movement. I shoved the folder under my coat and returned to the basement. Every step felt heavier, the mansion pressing expectation into my back. At the stairwell the lock rattled. He was checking, perhaps taunting, certain I was still trapped. I stood still, every nerve on fire. His voice slid through the cracks in the wood. You'll learn to keep quiet down there. Just like she did. She. My whisper slipped out before I could stop it. The house answered with a deep, settling shudder, dust cascading like sand through an hourglass. Whoever she was, another Callahan, another erased name, the mansion had held her secret too. I gripped the brass key tighter. This wasn't just my fight anymore. The ledger pressed heavy under my arm, but the folder with my name felt lighter, almost defiant, like the house itself wanted me to carry it upward. The lock above trembled again, his impatience bleeding through wood. I waited until his steps retreated, then slid the brass key into the stairwell door from the inside. Turned. Effortless. The door creaked open, and the mansion released me into its grand hallway, marble cold beneath my bare feet, chandeliers flickering as though stirred by my arrival. Every portrait on the wall seemed to watch, eyes painted centuries ago now burning with judgment. At the far end my brother stood. Glass in hand, tie loosened, his smirk sharpened into disbelief. How? You erased me, I said, voice low, steady. I laid the folder on a nearby table, letting the papers breathe in the open. But the house didn't agree. He laughed, brittle as ice cracking on stone. That basement makes people hallucinate. You think you found truth? You found dust. I slid the ledger across the polished surface toward him. Pages fluttered open to names, debts, signatures in our father's hand. His drink trembled. Where did you? The mirror at the end of the hall shivered, catching his reflection, twisting it. For the first time his face held shame, not mine. The mansion groaned with approval. And I realized the real inheritance wasn't money. It was power, the kind sealed in silence until someone dared to unlock it. He lunged for the ledger, but the house intervened. The chandelier above rattled violently, crystals clashing like teeth. His glass shattered across the marble, and the sound carried like thunder through every corridor. I didn't move. I didn't need to. The papers lay between us, undeniable, alive with ink that no one could deny. He stared at them, then at me, as though the mansion itself had betrayed him. You think anyone will believe you? He spat. You're the fragile one. Always were. I stepped closer, the cracked mirror's reflection following me like a second body. Fragile things cut the deepest. Remember. My father's words reclaimed. For once he had no retort. His silence tasted sweeter than any revenge I could have scripted. I slid the folder back into my coat, leaving the ledger open on the table for him to choke on. The house quieted, almost content. The brass key in my palm no longer burned. It rested, its duty fulfilled. I turned toward the door, the mansion's weight lifting from my shoulders. As my hand touched the knob, I spoke without looking back. Your shame doesn't belong to me. It never did. Outside, dawn pressed pale light against the windows. My inheritance wasn't wealth or walls. It was freedom, the kind that begins when you refuse to carry what was never yours. If this ever happened to you, just say same in the comments.